welcome viewers to this exciting discussion with one of my very good friends. And you have seen him in many TV channels. And amazing personality, very friendly and coherent to the core, straight communication. And we are a dharmic channel, and we are proud to say that we focus on Hindu Americans in the US and also Americans who are Hindus. And so we want to give you a dharmic perspective on current affairs. It will help you to strengthen your faith, your culture, and be proud of yourself. So without keeping you a lot in suspense, I'm going to introduce my friend, Sri Abhijit Iyer Mitra. So he's an amazing personality. Welcome, Abhijit ji, for this call. On this call.
Thank you for having me.
So I have a very before we start off. So where do you build your analysis? They're so deep, so engaging, and one of the best coherent speakers that I hear usually on the TVs.
So I think a lot of it has to do with my childhood because, they say a week's worth of travel equals a year of education. And ever since I was a kid, I studied in so many different places, just traveling, meeting people. The other thing was, so of course, you get exposed to a lot of ideas and lots of different people. The second thing was that, my parents, they never sent me off to play with other children. I was always expected to be in the room with their friends and start having adult conversations with their friends. So, till I was 30, I actually never had friends my own age because the level of conversation I always used to have used to be an adult conversation. So that was part two. Part three was I've had fantastic bosses. So, Guru Devo Bhavaha, we have that for a reason. It's not just for any guru because a lot of gurus are also bad gurus. But I have been blessed with gurus, who never had that inferiority complex key. They were always those kind of gurus who are like, my pride is when my student becomes even better than me. So, they always try to push me in new directions. And, one of my bosses, he was always, because I used to just keep focusing on defense, foreign policy, defense, foreign policy. And he used to tell me, if you just keep focusing without education, without understanding social policy and things like that, you'll never be a good defense analyst. So, for about 3 years, he refused to let me do defense and foreign policy because he said, you just have to do all this other stuff. And I used to curse him. I mean, that entire period, I was like, I hope I could break his glasses. I hope I could break his jaw. I hope I could break his face. And he was absolutely right. When I started studying about all these other problems that India had and social anthropology and all of that, all the pieces clicked. I could start connecting them all up. And he was so true that, defense analysis, the solution to our problems in defense doesn't lie in defense studies. It actually lies in anthropology and sociology and things like that. And, so I've generally been blessed with knowing lots of very, very, very smart people.
No, I know that actually shows up in your talks and your communication also. Oftentimes, the best analysts are the ones who have heard the most, and through hearing, people gain the deep realization of the people that shows up. So coming to our discussion, so there's one thing, since you are a defense analyst and you mentioned few things like anthropology and strategy and other things, which derive a lot from the human psychology study and also the big industry about intellectualism, where the intellectuals play an important role in narrative building. So today is a time for ideological kind of warfare, and that defines and the military solution is also needed, but it comes a little later on. So what is the importance of ideology in this war that we are fighting as a Hindu American community or Hindu community?
So, I'm not an ideologue in that sense. My branch of Hinduism is Charvaka. So we're complete atheists in that sense. But we're just extremely grateful that instead, in spite of being atheists, we're accepted as part of the Hindu fold. So,
Absolutely
it's just enlightened self interest
correct.
that makes me a Qatar Hindu, right? Because the more you institutionalize you, and technically, if you look at it, the Vedas, it's our Treaty of Westphalia. They keep talking about the Treaty of Westphalia in 1600 and something as being the foundation of the modern nation state. The Vedas are our Treaty of Westphalia. You look at Sudas and the Battle of 10 Kings.
Mm.
It was basically everybody going after everybody else, saying you aren't doing the Vedic rites properly, so on and so forth. They were cribbing about each other. And finally, the war is so devastating, they come together and decide we're going to write this book, and it's going to include all the streams of thought from everywhere, and there's no longer going to be this is right, this is wrong. Basically, everybody gets a say at the table, and we'll still continue fighting, but it'll be about things other than religion. We're not going to fight about religion. So, that kind of that's our foundation document in that sense. Technically, a Charvak should not see the Rig Veda as the source of authority, but I do because, in that sense, there's no hard limits or definitions on what a Hindu can or cannot do. You can do whatever you want and still be a Hindu. So that's number one. Number two, I find that, the problem for a very, very long time with Hinduism, and this is sort of a epistemological problem that we have to deal with. We've always had substance. We always know what another Hindu is, and so on and so forth. But we don't know what a not Hindu is. We still can't say you are different from us. We've got this natural tendency to absorb all streams of thought, even when that stream of thought wants to destroy you and destroy your way of life. And I think that is where Hindutva started off providing. So, it's what Samuel Huntington says in that book, Who We Are. Substance is what connects us, salience is what separates us from the other. We always had substance, we never had salience. And I think what started off is this process of salience. But I should say we're still unclear about it. We're still not gotten around to it. There is still this innate Hindu resistance to say you are not us, you are different, go away. We still have a problem saying that. And it's sad really because, that we've never been able to articulate it. We still don't know how to use carrots and sticks. I mean, look at the riots, the Delhi riots that just happened. They were both-sided riots, and yet you have places like the New York Times, the Guardian. I mean, these are the usual suspects, right? Every time Donald Trump tweets fake news, we know he's talking about these organizations. But they did not cover the death of at least 30 Hindus during this entire thing. Quite possibly the majority of people killed were Hindus. There is no mention of that. And you know what? They can get away with it without any sort of consequences. The government of India, the BJP, the RSS, none of them actually seem to give a damn as long as they just keep winning elections. And this is, of course, the problem. Historically, we've had megalomaniacal leaders who are obsessed with their own image, and they don't give a damn what happens to the country and to Dharma. Porus was like that. Yeah, Prithviraj Chauhan, I'm sorry to say this, was like that. For his glory, for his chivalry, he was happy to let this man go off in the first Battle of Tarain, who then comes and executes him in the second Battle of Tarain. None of that chivalry or anything shown. And of course, what people don't want to talk about is that Prithviraj Chauhan's son was actually installed as the king by this man as his puppet and continued to rule in this foreign invader's name for a while. So, we've got a long history of collaboration because we don't actually other the other. And this is very, very, very important. The third thing is the complete lack of scholarship and intellect on a lot of our things. On the right, I mean, the right is such an amorphous term. Right now, the right is more socialist than most socialists are. The joke is Modi has moved to the left of Prakash Karat, which is why Prakash Karat and Sitaram Yechuri lost the election so badly. So what happens is we don't actually read people like Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who are our biggest ideological allies. Instead, we just go on berating everyone, everything. And I've almost given up. It's like, yeah, boo, I've thrown my hands up in the air.
No, you cannot give up because you're, like you said, many things you said just now, and one of the things which strikes me that Hinduism is such a great faith that even acknowledges all aspects. Even if you are a Nastik, you're also a Hindu. So that is a big thing in the Hindu culture. Another thing which struck me, which you hit the nail over there, was that the Hindus, the silence, the Hindus are not demanding from anyone. And I'll tell you, this is the same problem we used to have in US until we came up with our own super PAC and we started saying we are asking things now because Americans respect when we ask, and so now we are asking for our rights, our positions in the political landscape here. Now, you touched a little bit on the Delhi riots also, and it is a very sensitive subject even in the US. But the most remarkable thing that you said was everyone is silent. Everyone is claiming themselves to be victims, where Hindus are the victims here. Now, coming back to the our mindset and the way has become so Hindu Americans or Hindus have become so weak that they are not able to speak coherently to an enemy. So who is that enemy? And that is, if we have some kind of direction, then we know that that is an enemy. But somehow what I feel is that we as a community, we are trying to uh, hide from the real problem. Do you feel that way?
Look, our issue has always been that we hide from the real problem. We tend to intellectualize and philosophize our problems. This again comes from this thing of Maya Jal, that somehow the reality is ephemeral and we're striving for this sort of otherworldly whatever. In which case, I ask you, why the hell did Krishna make Arjuna and the Pandavas fight the battle of Kurukshetra? He should have said, life is ephemeral. Let Dushasana and Duryodhana take everything, and let's go off and live in Vanvas, because anyway we are going to become one with whatever. I'm sorry to say this, but we've turned into, our worship of cows has gone so excessive, we've turned into cows ourselves. We're literally like that cattle that goes to the slaughter without complaining. We'll cry whatever at the end, but we have no capacity to either ideate a resistance or actually do a resistance. It is beyond our capacity right now. And unfortunately, these are the same tropes, nonsense like Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, this garibi mein dignity hai. Tell me what Hindu text ever in history has ever said that there is dignity in poverty. We are the people that break the legs of Lakshmi statues and keep it at home so that Lakshmi won't be able to leave your house. All right. We worship Lakshmi. Tell me one god of poverty that we have ever worshipped. Have you heard of a god called Durdhara at all?
No, I haven't.
I haven't.
Yes.
I've never heard of this.
Yeah.
Tell me one god of poverty that we worship.
Nobody.
All right.
Yeah.
So this entire thing, suffering and poverty and la-di-da, it is the complete colonization of the Hindu mind by this Christian suffering la-di-da nonsense, which, the level of colonization of the mind is so ridiculous. It's not even funny. You go back to the Arthashastra, and you can actually see this fight between what happens between, dharma and adharma in the Mahabharata or the Ramayana. I mean, Ramayana is still much more shades of grey than the Mahabharata. They're all shades of grey, remember. The thing is, the Arthashastra, the Maurya dynasty, gives you the most practical example of dharma and adharma. When Chanakya comes to power, he says the only duty of a king is to provide security, a good non-corruptible judiciary, and a regulatory mechanism. And that's it. Internal, external security. If you want a bridge, you build it yourself. If there's demand and supply, a private operator will build a bridge. He can tax. The only thing we expect from you is you will let the military to pass without any taxes. Other than that, he expects nothing from you, right? And that empire worked brilliantly for us till Ashoka comes about. And Ashoka is the very definition of a my Baap state. Devanam Piya Piyadasi, I am your father, I am your grandfather, I am your grandmother, I am going to provide you with social service, I am going to provide you with emotional support, I am going to provide you with Medicare, health, counseling, whatever, whatever, whatever. And people don't realize he converted to Buddhism 4 years before the Battle of Kalinga.
Mm.
He didn't convert on the battlefield. It wasn't a battlefield conversion. This was a full-on. So Chanakya, the arch capitalist, was also a Hindu Indian origin,
Okay.
and communism in that sense. Socialism, not communism. Socialism in that sense also has its origin in the Maurya dynasty with Ashoka. And guess what? Ashoka's Mauryan empire collapsed like Hugo Chavez's Venezuela. 20 years into after Ashoka's death, Kharavela, the king of Kalinga, comes and sacks Patliputra. You never read about that in any of the history books. Imagine 20 years after the Battle of Kalinga, if the Kalinga king comes and burns down Patliputra, how do you not know this? So we've been taught a completely skewed. I mean, honestly, go to any Hindu and ask them, what is Hinduism? You know, I can't tell you what Hinduism is, because it's like the Gita. You know what the Gita says?
Yeah.
What you may find here, you will find in many other books. But if
Yes.
you don't find it here, you won't find it anywhere else.
Correct.
It's like that. It's very much that. I want to know what is the Hindu justification for the kind of socialism that is going on. What is the Hindu justification for allowing yourselves to get killed, being incompetent, being useless, being third rate at both at your PR and your defense and everything, and living in perpetual delusion? And this love of socialism, I see absolutely no basis for it. And yet we're meant to believe that somehow we're turning into Hindu Rashtra. What the hell? What is Hindu about this Rashtra?
No, there's a joke about it. So we all want Ram Rajya without Ram. And so we all want to have Ram Rajya, but we don't want to see that Ram actually killed Ravan for kidnapping his wife. There was a proactive action right there. And he arranged the biggest army, and that to he broke the pride of Ravan with army of monkeys. So this was symbolical that the monkeys defeated the world's mightiest army. So that was Ram.
Yeah.
And so when we look at this, so today India is growing, and it has become a like the educated labor force, I'll call
Mm.
it, and which ideally it should be a person like you and many people like you in India, who are the brain powers who can guide the whole world in a nice way. But unfortunately, India has become an offshore center, and
Mm.
because we are not exporting what we should be exporting, ideally we should be exporting dharma, we should be exporting the political ideologies from Chanakya and all the other dharmic ideologies we have. We have everything what other people can think. Our people have thought about it, our sages thought about it thousands of years back, what people are discovering now. So my proposition was, when the US exports democracy, why not India is exporting dharma? Do you think like it is? You already mentioned many points. So this is the biggest thing, that unless we change the narrative from India, the world is not going to take India seriously.
Look, I don't think dharma is something to be exported in a sense, and I'll tell you why. I think it's this unique gem. It is the joy of discovering it and then owning it. I used to be a communist as a kid. Till I was around 18, 19, 20. I was viciously anti-Hindu, anti-dharma in that sense. And then, I slowly discovered it from myself. And that is what attracted me to it. That there's no
There are two,
force.
there are two aspects of dharma. One is a personal aspect, which is a faith-based dharma, which is mine. But then there is a dharma of the state, dharma of a state, because state has an ideology. The dharma of the king, then the dharma is like an intrinsic quality, or just like the water's dharma is liquidity. So it can be a compulsory duty or a state. So it is a very broad term. So the dharma of the US has become democracy right now. That's the dharma of
Mm.
the US, and they won't shy to put their military boots on the ground in Afghanistan to install democracy. It may not work or may work, but they try their best. So
And
somewhere,
that is exactly what we need to avoid, because see, these are mistakes that they have made in abundance. They keep doing this democracy promotion. They've done this for a very, very long time, and every single time they pay a heavy, heavy price for it. I have zero interest in it, right? So personally, I'm not for spreading our ideology. I'm not for it becoming an imperial force in that sense, both either militarily or intellectually. um, and there's a whole complex set of reasons for it, that we need to first have a lot more presence as an international power. You need to be a first world country first before you start exporting all these
right?
things, because an idea comes wrapped up in who the projector is. We can't have a country as corrupt and dysfunctional as ours going around preaching about either Rajadharma or Swadharma internationally, when we've got so many crooks in positions of power and such a completely dysfunctional government. So I don't think that works for the time being. But yes, as once we become a great power, then yes, I agree that there should be a significant projection of dharma in all its forms and ways abroad.
No, very good points you said. One last point. I know you have to go, and so in your I think you have a very good understanding of the weakness of the Hindu mindset, and I feel that that's a great understanding. So, and we'll cover this in the next video. Just a small, short point that you can put across. What is that we as a Hindu community should do to become stronger from India first and then US? See, the US Hindu American community is very different than Indian Hindu community in
Mm,
terms of we are taking very proactive steps to correct, and we are projecting ourselves as a minority. But in India, Hindus are becoming minority also in a
mm.
big way due to demographic subversions. So how do we what is the message for you, very short message that we can relay in this interview?
The message is that I find Hinduism, and I use this term advisedly, Hinduism is suffering from an extremely deep inferiority complex. I think 1,000 years of slavery have mentally just made well, it's turned us into a nation of either cows or baboons. Take your pick. Uh, and the problem is that a lot of the expressions of muscularity and cultural assertion that we see are shallow. They are rooted in a deep, deep, deep inferiority complex that comes through. And no country can become a great power if, reek, as long as we reek of inferiority. And no country can become a great power unless we're willing to do a very, very vicious introspection. And the lack of introspection, and isn't it amazing that all our gurus and all our religious texts tell us, look within, look within, look at yourself. And yet all we do is keep trumpeting, say DRDO is so great, APJ Abdul Kalam is so great, our missile program is so great, Tejas is so great, our prime minister is so great. But at no point do we actually do a real statistical database introspection of ourselves. And as long as we don't introspect and keep all, we seem to think introspection is something ephemeral and esoteric just to be talked about, but never actually done. And this is what brought down Porus against Alexander. This is what brought down Prithviraj Chauhan. This is what brought down, successive Hindu kings, why we were never able to conquer the Turkish menace. So introspect, correct yourself, and then lose that inferiority complex.
No, great message, and I love it the way the examples that you gave of Prithviraj Chauhan, because many of our kings fought for themselves, more their personal honor more than the larger interests of the people. And I totally agree with you there. A great conversation and a great analysis, Abhijit. Always a pleasure in person or on video. So thank you all viewers. Watch us next video with Abhijit shortly after sunset.